welcome to episode 2. In this episode, I'd like to explain a bit more about what the philosophically negative paradigm means when applied to therapy in psychology. Normally this paradigm is more associated with philosophy, and we could say that what it means in terms of philosophy is that our starting off point is that we can't say anything about reality, that we can't define reality or make any meaningful theories about it at all. And by understanding this, we open the way to seeing through all our delusions and misconceptions about reality. And by seeing our delusions and misconceptions about reality for being what they are, our own fabrications that we've never really taken the time to look at carefully enough, we open the door to something that isn't of our own construction. Because it's not of our own construction, it's not susceptible to definition. But that doesn't detract from it at all. The fact that something can be defined doesn't say much about it, apart from the fact that it's a toy of our thinking mind, an artifact of our own way of looking at things. So in the negative paradigm, although it sounds as if it's disempowering in a way because we can't say what reality is, we can very clearly say what it isn't. And saying what reality isn't turns out to be far more powerful. In terms of therapy, we can express this negative principle by saying that there's nothing we can do to become more mentally healthy on purpose. It's not a road we can walk down. It's not a procedure that we can follow in order to become mentally healthy. And this is a very clear point. It's a very, very clear point. There is absolutely nothing we can do to become more mentally healthy. This, on the face of it, again, sounds very disempowering. It's not something that we straight away see as being a helpful thing. Although I'd like to try to show that it is very helpful and very practical. Whereas the positive paradigm, although it appears immediately to be exactly what we want, because it's telling us what to do and giving us an impression that we can improve our situation, mental health wise, by steps that we can take, isn't actually helpful at all. In fact, it's the exact antithesis of helpful. So what appears to be helpful is not at all helpful, and in the case of the negative paradigm, what appears to be a slap in the face and feels like a slap in the face, after we've got over the initial sting of that slap, turns out to be immensely helpful. It turns out to be all that we need, in fact. So if you say to anyone, there's nothing you can do to improve your situation, self-improvement is a kind of a thing that we like the idea of very much. The shelves of self-help sections are full of self-improvement and stuff you can do to improve your situation and realise yourself more, become more of who you truly are, whatever way you want to explain it. Positive self-help books are practically all we ever see, and in the same way, therapy is something where the responsibility is put firmly on us. Here's a thing that you can do. People vary in what they say we can do, but it all comes down to the same thing. Here's a thing that you can do. It's kind of hard to explain why this is so fundamentally wrong. It's hard for us to get our heads around it. It's counterintuitive in a big way, really. Maybe not counterintuitive, it's contra everything we've learned in society. It's contra our way of thinking, which is a positive way of thinking. It totally lacks any subtlety. It's just based on assuming something without realizing that we're assuming something, and then charging ahead, full speed ahead, on the basis of this assumption. and hoping naively that we get somewhere in this way. Now it is a difficult thing to explain, how we cannot become more mentally healthy or improve ourselves on purpose, but it can be explained. And one good way to explain it is to think about meditation and what happens in meditation. So if you ever have practiced meditation to any degree at all, even just once or twice, it doesn't take too long to get the idea that meditation, or the meditative state of mind, or a peaceful state of mind even, isn't something that's brought about by our efforts or cleverness. It's brought about by us learning to get out of our own way. That's the great thing. It's not something that we interfere with ourselves to make ourselves more peaceful, or that we manipulate successfully so that we enter into a lovely, peaceful state. And as soon as we express it like this, that's obviously true. How can we manipulate peace? It's our habit of non-stop manipulation, non-stop control, non-stop spin doctoring that is the problem. If we stop all that, there's peace. Peace is always there. It's just us that spoil it. We spoil it for ourselves every day. We wake up in the morning and what do? We spoil it. We keep on spoiling it. So we go to sleep again. So we're definitely our own worst enemies in this regard. And we spoil it in essence by trying to fix what doesn't need fixing. So in meditation, we learn that when we sit there and keep our attention, for example, on the breath, which is one of the best known traditional focuses for meditation, after a while, it doesn't take too long to realize that there is something that happens and that we will become more peaceful. It's as if we're moving in that direction towards a more peaceful state of being when we stop thinking and when we stop muddying the water. So this is happening the whole time. There is this natural movement towards peace that can be observed. Now the thing about this is, as soon as we notice it, we spoil it because we want to avail of it, or we get excited about it, or we like it and we think it is great. So thereby muddying the water again. Or we might try to reproduce what we did already in order to get to that state again. So when the peacefulness happens, to whatever degree, even if it's just a little bit, there's something in us deep down goes, I know what that is now, I can do it again. And so as soon as we have that thought, and as soon as we try to do it again, we're a million miles off the mark. We're further than a million miles. We're on a different planet. We're back into manipulation realm. It's like we've learned a new clever trick. And as Rumi says, and I can't really remember exactly what he says, but when you stop playing tricks, that'll be your cleverest trick. But that seems to be one thing we don't learn very readily. It is one thing we don't learn very readily, to stop playing tricks. So anyway, in meditation we soon learn that there is a state of peacefulness that we will move into very slowly, becoming more and more peaceful. And that happens all by itself. There's no method to that. But then the urge or the desire to help that process along is so strong, we can't help trying to facilitate it in some way. Then the whole thing's banjaxed because we're back in the territory of personal will, trying to make things happen ourselves because we want them to be a particular way, or what we think we want them to be a particular way. We don't even know what way we want them to be really, but we jump on board and start controlling. So the self-improvement, which is the wrong term, but whatever term we want to use, happens all by itself when we don't interfere with ourselves. And if we were to persevere in meditation, we would inevitably get better at not interfering. We'd get better at stepping out of our own way. And this is a negative path. We learn that personal will doesn't get us anywhere. And we also learn that we can't get rid of personal will with personal will. So in terms of basic everyday practice of meditation and what we learn from that, we can see very, very clearly that moving into reality, because peacefulness and reality are the same thing, is not something that happens as a result of our intention, or because we want to, or because we're arranging things in that way. So there's the negative paradigm straight away in terms of meditation. Mental health's no different, because obviously mental health is moving into that state of being which is not manufactured by our own minds, and which is the same thing as what I've just called reality. So how can mental health not be moving into reality? It's got to be moving into reality. And we can't move into reality on purpose, because anything on purpose merely extends the bubble of our illusion, which is where we're starting off from. We're starting off from a bubble of illusion, because that's what the thinking mind creates. The thinking mind always creates illusion, because it's creating ideas about the world, theories about the world, impressions about the world, which have no actual true correspondence with reality. Nothing has any true correspondence with reality apart from reality, which doesn't even correspond to reality, it just is reality, obviously. So here we have this situation where the answer to everything lies in reality, not in my hopes or fears or in theories about the world. And yet I cannot get into reality on purpose, because my starting off point is not reality. And we can see that this is such a fundamental thing. It's also true for happiness. Everyone wants to be happy, we like being happy, we do things in order to be happy, but nobody can be happy on purpose, which is something on one level we all know very well. But it doesn't stop us trying and spoiling things for ourselves that way. So hopefully that's explained a little bit more about the negative philosophical paradigm as applied to mental health, and I'll go into it a little bit more on the next instalment. Okay, thank you.